Mom, figure it out. Not my problem. That's what my own daughter said before hanging up on me. I stared at my phone, holding the ticket worth $300 million, and smiled. Ashley had just failed the most important test of her life, and she didn't even know it. If you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe to Red Silk Revenge, where every story reminds us that karma never forgets. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what would you do if you suddenly won $300 million? Now, let me take you back to how it all began, the Tuesday morning that changed everything. My name is Ellen Smith, though most folks just call me Ellen. I'm 62, a retired librarian from Dayton, Ohio, and for most of my life, I believed that hard work and kindness were enough. I raised two children, Ashley and Michael, mostly on my own after my husband passed. I thought I'd taught them compassion. I thought they loved me. Turns out what I really taught them was how much they could take from me before I finally stopped giving. It started 3 weeks ago, a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. The kind where the coffee pot sputters, the radio hums softly, and you're halfway through folding laundry before the world decides to spin off its axis. That morning, I found a crumpled lottery ticket in the pocket of an old winter coat, one I'd almost donated to Goodwill. Why not, the cashier had joked. Somebody's got to win. Usually, I'd check numbers right away, but this time the ticket slipped between grocery receipts and old grocery lists, forgotten until that quiet morning. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and typed in the winning numbers. One by one, each digit matched. My hand trembled. I checked again, then again. The entire sequence matched, every single number. I wasn't just rich, I was filthy rich. $300 million rich. I sat at my kitchen table in silence, staring at the ticket as the clock ticked past 8 a.m. Birds chirped outside, oblivious to the miracle sitting between my fingers. Most people would scream, cry, call family. Me? I laughed, a quiet, disbelieving laugh that rolled into tears. For the first time in years, the universe had handed me something. But joy lasted all of 5 minutes, until the thought hit me. Who could I trust? Ashley hadn't called in weeks. Michael texted only when he needed help with bills. The last conversation I'd had with either of them ended in disappointment. I wanted to believe that money wouldn't change them, but deep down, I already knew the truth. So I made a decision. Before I claimed the winnings publicly, I'd test them, quietly. That evening, I phoned Ashley, my daughter. She lived in a big suburban house with her husband, Tom, a realtor who loved luxury cars and loved to remind everyone about them. "Hey, sweetheart," I said gently. "Could you help me a bit this month? My arthritis medicine's gotten expensive and Mom, not again. You've got a pension, right?" "I do, but the bills..." "Mom, figure it out. Not my problem. You're sick because you don't take care of yourself." Then she hung up. I stared at my phone, the silence ringing louder than any insult. The same daughter I'd raised with double shifts and skipped meals couldn't even spare a minute of kindness? I looked at the lottery ticket resting in the cookie jar. My lips curved into a cold, steady smile. Ashley had just failed the most important test of her life, and she didn't even know it. 2 days later, I called Michael, my son. He was always busy, but I left a voicemail anyway. "Hey, honey, just checking in. Could you stop by this weekend? The roof's leaking again." He texted back hours later. "Can't, Mom. Heading to Chicago. Maybe next month." I didn't bother replying. By the end of that week, I knew exactly where I stood with both of them, alone. Except for Liam, my grandson. Michael's boy, only 16, awkward, always reading. He'd mow my lawn for free, bring over soup when I was sick, and actually listened when I talked. He didn't know it, but he was about to become part of something bigger, a quiet experiment that would change all our lives. I spent the next few days crafting my plan. I'd claim the money anonymously, set up a private trust, and move funds where no one could touch them. Then I'd fake being broke. If my children couldn't love me when I had nothing, they'd never see a cent when I had everything. So I started small. I canceled the housekeeper, stopped buying new clothes, and let my home look a little worn. When Ashley visited, reluctantly, she frowned at the peeling wallpaper. "Mom, this place looks depressing," she said, adjusting her designer purse. "I know, dear, just can't afford much anymore." She nodded absently, scrolling through her phone. "Well, maybe you could sell it, move into assisted living. Tom says they've got nice ones near us." Her tone wasn't kindness, it was convenience. When she left, she hugged me with one arm, careful not to smudge her perfume. I watched her drive away in her new SUV, music blaring, while I stood in the doorway holding a cup of cold tea. That night, I transferred $10 million into a new hidden account and smiled. The stage was set. The following morning, I invited Liam over. He arrived on his bike, breathless, smiling. "Hey, Grandma, need me to fix the shed door again?" "Something like that. But first, could you help me with groceries? My back isn't what it used to be." "Sure thing." He grinned, grabbed the list, and didn't ask for money. When he returned, I slipped him a 20. He tried to refuse. "Grandma, it's okay." "Take it," I said softly. "You earned it." He finally pocketed it, shyly. That small gesture told me more about his heart than any grand speech. Over the next week, I deepened the act. I pretended to be struggling. I even forgot to pay my electric bill once so the power would flicker when Ashley stopped by. She sighed dramatically. "Mom, you've got to manage better. I can't keep fixing your problems." I bit my tongue, nodding. Inside, I cataloged every word, every gesture. Ashley's indifference, Michael's excuses, Liam's quiet kindness. Each one added to a growing ledger in my mind, not of dollars, but of worth. Because soon, when the time was right, I'd balance those books in a way they'd never forget. 3 weeks ago, I was just Ellen Smith, a tired widow with fading dreams. Now, I was something else entirely. A woman holding power and a secret. And I was done being the victim.
The first week of my little experiment was almost fun. There was a strange thrill in walking through town wearing the same old coat, knowing I could buy the entire block if I wanted to. But power is sweetest when it's silent. I began to notice things I'd ignored for years, how quickly people measure you by what they think you have. The cashier who once called me sweetheart now sighed impatiently when I paid in change. Neighbors who used to wave across the fence barely looked up when my lawn grew a little wild. It was as if becoming invisible gave me a front row seat to everyone's true nature. 1. The visit. Ashley showed up on a Friday afternoon the way people visit a doctor, obligated, not loving. She plopped her designer bag on the kitchen table and wrinkled her nose. "Mom, this place smells like dust. Are you sure you're keeping up with things?" I smiled faintly, doing my best. She glanced around, her gaze catching on the empty fruit bowl. "You really don't have groceries? Tom says I should help you budget. Maybe you need a financial planner." I nodded, pretending to take notes, while inside I wanted to laugh. A financial planner when I was quietly earning more interest every day than she made in a year? Ashley's phone buzzed. She checked it mid-sentence, her attention already gone. "Well, I have to run. Tom's meeting me for dinner. We're thinking of upgrading the SUV." "Of course," I said softly. She didn't notice the faint smirk that tugged up my mouth as she walked out, because in that moment, I realized she'd pass any lie I gave her, but fail any truth. 2. The favor. That weekend, I phoned Michael. I told him the roof leak had worsened. He sighed. "Mom, I'm slammed. The new job's a nightmare. Could you just come look? I'll make dinner." A pause. Then, "I'll see what I can do." He arrived 3 days later, reeking of stress and coffee. He glanced at the dripping ceiling, muttered something about needing new shingles, and then leaned against the counter. "You know, Mom, if you sold this place, you could move somewhere smaller. I could help handle the sale. You'd get good money." There it was, the sparkle in his eyes. Not worry, not love, opportunity. I feigned worry. "But where would I go? There are senior condos near my office. You'd be close to me, and I could manage your expenses." Manage, he said, as though I were a failing company, not his mother. I thanked him sweetly and said I'd think about it. When he left, I locked the door and whispered to myself, that's 2 for 2. 3. The only one who stayed. Liam came by after school every other day. He'd help me fix the squeaky cabinet, carry groceries, or simply sit on the porch. One evening, rain pattered softly as he dried his shoes at the door. "Grandma, Dad says you should sell the house. Are you really broke?" I looked at him carefully. "Would it change how you see me?" He frowned. "Of course not. You're my grandma. I just don't want you to struggle." That simple sentence pierced deeper than any insult his father or aunt had ever thrown. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm figuring things out." He nodded, still worried, and reached for the toolbox. The boy didn't know it, but with every nail he hammered and every errand he ran, he was securing his own destiny. 4. The gathering storm. A week later, I accidentally let it slip to Ashley that I might lose the house. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. First, Michael called. "Mom, I talked to a friend in real estate. He can list your house fast. It's the best move for you." Then Ashley, "Tom says maybe we could take over your mortgage and rent it out. You'd still technically own it, Mom. We just handle everything." They weren't even hiding it anymore. I kept my tone meek. "That's generous of you both." Inside, my heart hardened like cooling steel. People often say money changes you. They're wrong. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've been all along. 5. The public embarrassment. Ashley invited me to brunch with her friends. It was one of those glossy cafes where everything costs triple what it's worth. I wore my faded blue dress, the one she used to compliment before she got rich. When I arrived, she whispered, "Mom, try to look cheerful, okay?" Her friends asked polite questions until Ashley sighed dramatically. "She's been struggling since Dad died. Fixed income, you know how it is." The table nodded sympathetically. Someone handed me a coupon for senior discounts. Ashley smiled proudly, as if she'd done charity. I smiled back, calm as ice, and thought, if you only knew what charity really means. 6. The desperation. 2 days later, she called again, pretending concern. "Mom, are you eating okay? Tom said maybe we could help a bit, just until you sell the house." "Oh, that's sweet," I murmured. "How much do you think you could spare?" "Well, things are tight. Maybe $50? 50, I repeated, tasting the number like bitterness on my tongue. "Every bit helps," I said softly. She exhaled relieved and hung up. I stared at the phone, my jaw tightening. If a mother's love were currency, mine had just been devalued beyond repair. 7. The friend's warning. My old friend Martha stopped by with soup. She eyed the dark circles under my eyes. "Ellen, you look worn out. Are you sure you're all right?" "I'm fine," I lied. She lowered her voice. "I ran into Ashley downtown. She was talking about getting you into assisted living. Said you can't handle bills anymore." I forced a smile. I appreciate her concern. But inside, fury churned. My daughter wasn't just greedy, she was rewriting my story while I was still alive. That night, I drafted a new document with my attorney. A private will, sealed, and witnessed. Only one name would appear as primary beneficiary: Liam's. 8. The quiet betrayal. By now, Ashley and Michael were calling daily, not to check on me, but to ask, "Any decision on the house?" Their voices dripped with false sympathy. I began answering less, letting messages pile up. Then one afternoon, I overheard something that sealed their fate. I'd left my phone on speaker by accident when Ashley called Michael. Her voice was crisp, impatient. "She's losing it, Mike. We need to get her finances under control before she wastes what's left." Michael replied,
Exactly. Once we sell the property, we can split whatever's left. Silence. Then laughter. The kind that twists your stomach because it used to sound like love. I ended the call and stared at the wall for a long time. The air felt heavy, thick with betrayal. But beneath the hurt, something stronger began to grow. Resolve. 9. The turning point. Liam came over that evening with pizza. I smiled, though my mind was already working. Grandma, you okay? You look like you're thinking hard. I am, sweetheart. I've been learning who my family really is. You mean Dad and Aunt Ashley? I nodded. People show their hearts when they think no one's watching. He frowned. They shouldn't talk to you that way. I touched his hand gently. Don't worry, darling. Life has a way of settling its own debts. He didn't understand then, but he would. Soon. 10. The storm breaks. That weekend, Ashley and Michael arrived together, their smiles brittle. They'd clearly planned it, a united front. Ashley started, Mom, we've been talking. It's really time to get serious about your situation. Michael nodded. Yeah, we found a buyer who'll pay cash for this house. We can move you next month. I folded my hands. And where will I go? Ashley exchanged a look with him. There's a lovely senior complex near us. You'd have everything you need. I glanced at the ticket stub, hidden beneath the napkin holder, and almost laughed. Everything I need? What I needed was truth, and soon they'd get it. That night, I called my lawyer again. I'm ready, I told him. Move the trust into activation phase and prepare a notice for public release 3 days from now. He hesitated. Are you sure, Mrs. Smith? Oh, yes, I said, my voice calm and deliberate. It's time they learn what being broke really feels like. I hung up, switched off the kitchen light, and watched the moonlight spill across the counter where my children had once eaten together as toddlers. The house creaked softly, like it knew what was coming. I whispered to the dark, Tomorrow, the test ends.
Morning sunlight crept through the curtains like an intruder. The house felt different that day. Still, but not peaceful. It was the silence before confession, the breath before thunder. I poured my coffee, black as my thoughts, and waited. I knew they'd come. At noon, a car door slammed outside. Ashley's heels clicked up the path, followed by Michael's heavy footsteps. Mom, Ashley said as she walked in without knocking, we need to talk. Michael followed, clutching a folder thick with papers. I got the listing agreement ready. All we need is your signature. I took a slow sip of coffee, savoring the bitterness. Is that so? Ashley sighed. Mom, please, we're trying to help you. This place is falling apart, you're exhausted, and I raised a hand. And you think selling my home will fix that. Michael's jaw tightened. It's the logical choice. Logical, I repeated softly. You sound just like your father when he explained why he missed your birthdays. Ashley frowned. Why are you being so dramatic? Because, I said, standing up, this isn't a house problem, it's a heart problem. They looked at each other, confused, irritated. Perfect. A car pulled into the driveway, sleek, black, quiet. Michael's eyes narrowed. Who's that? My lawyer, I said. I thought it best to have someone here before I sign anything. Ashley stiffened. Lawyer? Mom, you didn't... The door opened, and Mr. Carter stepped inside, calm and professional. He greeted them politely, then placed a sealed envelope on the table. This contains Mrs. Smith's updated estate documentation, he said. Per her instruction, it will become public in 72 hours. Michael's color drained. Public? What are you talking about? Ashley forced a laugh. Mom, what's going on? I folded my hands. I think it's time you both know the truth. I opened a drawer and took out a small piece of paper, wrinkled, unassuming. It was the original lottery ticket. Ashley blinked. What is that? The reason I've been quiet, I said. $300 million. Silence. Michael's eyes darted from the ticket to my face, searching for a lie. Ashley's lips parted, trembling. 300 million? She whispered. Yes, I said. And before you ask? No, I didn't tell anyone. Not even you. Why? Michael burst out. Why would you hide that? Because I wanted to see who you were when I had nothing. Ashley's face twisted. That's insane. You lied to us. I tested you, I said evenly. I needed to know if love was still part of this family. Michael slammed the folder shut. This little game proves anything. You made us worry. I looked between them, 2 grown children who'd once run through this kitchen barefoot, laughing. Now they stood there like strangers waiting for a verdict. You worried, I said quietly, about your inheritance, not me. Ashley flinched as though I'd slapped her. That's not fair, she snapped. We were trying to help you. Help me sell my house? Help me manage my money? Help me disappear? Her mouth opened, but no words came. Mr. Carter cleared his throat and placed 2 recordings on the table. Per Mrs. Smith's request, these are the phone calls between you both, recorded last week. Ashley's face drained of color. You recorded us? Ohio is a one-party consent state, I said calmly, and I'm that party. He pressed play. Their laughter filled the kitchen. The same laughter that once meant joy now sounded cruel and foreign. She's losing it, Mike. Once we sell, we'll split whatever's left. The recording ended. Silence. Ashley looked at Michael, her eyes burning. You said you deleted that call. Michael barked. How was I supposed to know she'd record it? They turned on each other, panic blooming into fury. I watched, quiet, detached, as years of fake smiles crumbled in seconds. I stood slowly. Enough. My voice cut through the argument like a blade. You 2 have turned your backs on everything your father and I taught you. Respect, kindness, decency, gone. Ashley's tears came then, but they weren't sorrowful. They were cornered. Mom, please, we can fix this. Fix? I repeated softly. Some things don't get fixed. They get remembered. Mr. Carter handed me another envelope. This, he said, is the finalized version of your will. I opened it and placed a single page in front of them. They leaned in, their eyes scanned the page, then froze. Everything, the properties, the accounts, the investments, all went to Liam. Ashley gasped. You left everything to him? Michael stepped forward. That's not right. We're your children. You were, I said, but you stopped acting like it. They stared at me, speechless. Liam continued, never once asked what I could give him. He just gave. And that's the difference. Ashley dropped into a chair, shaking her head. You can't do this. He's just a kid. He won't know how to handle it. That's why Mr. Carter will oversee it until he turns 25, I said calmly. Every dollar accounted for. Michael's voice cracked. You're ruining this family. No, I said, my voice low and steady. You ruined it when you forgot what family meant. Ashley began to sob, but it wasn't guilt. It was loss. Loss of comfort, loss of control. Michael just stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, I said, you should go. Ashley looked up, eyes swollen. Mom, please. Don't. Go, I repeated, softer but firm. You'll receive a formal notice from my attorney, that's all. Michael hesitated at the door. You'll regret this. I smiled sadly. I already did, long before today. The door shut behind them, leaving an echo that seemed to stretch for miles. I sank into the nearest chair, the weight of it all pressing down. I had won, yes, but victories like this always come wrapped in loneliness. Liam came by that afternoon, puzzled by the tension he'd sensed. Grandma, what happened? Dad and Aunt Ashley looked mad. I smiled faintly. They'll be fine. Some lessons are just hard to learn. He frowned. Did they hurt you? I shook my head. No, sweetheart. They just showed me who they really are. He sat beside me. You're the best person I know. For the first time in weeks, tears came, soft, quiet, cleansing. I took his hand and whispered, You'll do better, Liam. Promise me you'll do better. He nodded. I promise. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle, rhythmic, forgiving. I closed my eyes and let the sound wash over me. $300 million couldn't buy forgiveness, but it had bought me clarity. And sometimes that's worth more than all the gold in the world. 2 days later, local headlines flashed across every screen. Ohio woman wins $300 million, secretly tests family loyalty before revealing fortune. Messages flooded my voicemail, reporters camped by the gate. Old acquaintances suddenly remembered my name. Ashley called, then Michael. I didn't answer. The only call I returned was Liam's. "Grandma," he said excitedly, "everyone's talking about you. Is it true?" "Yes, darling," I said softly. "It's true." He was quiet for a moment. "Does this mean you're rich now?" I laughed gently. "No, Liam, it means I finally know who really loves me." That night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in a shawl. The stars above me were sharp and cold, like little truths in the dark. I thought about my children and all the years I'd spent making excuses for their selfishness. I thought about my husband, long gone, who'd always believed love could survive anything. He was wrong. But maybe, just maybe, his grandson could prove him right again. I smiled, whispered into the night, "The test is over." And with that, Ellen Smith finally allowed herself to rest, not in grief, but in peace.
3 days after the reveal, my quiet Ohio home no longer felt quiet. The air buzzed with a hum of news vans, phones ringing, and cameras flashing through my window. For years, I'd been invisible. Now, everyone suddenly wanted a piece of me. The story spread like wildfire. Elderly woman tests children before revealing $300 million fortune. Mother's secret lottery revenge shocks a small town. Reporters camped at the edge of my driveway, shouting questions whenever I opened the curtains. "Mrs. Smith, did you really trick your kids? Do you regret not telling them?" No, I didn't regret it. I regretted needing to. Behind every clickbait headline was something more painful, the truth of a mother's disappointment. I brewed my coffee, as I always did, and let the noise rage outside. I'd lived through worse storms. Ashley called first. Her voice was raw. "Mom, everyone's talking about us," she said, almost whispering. "People at Tom's work. They're saying awful things." "Are they?" I said calmly. "What did they say?" "That we're greedy, that we used you, that—" She stopped, breathing hard. "Mom, please tell them it's not true." I stared out the window at the rain sliding down the glass. "It is true, Ashley. You just don't like the echo." Her voice cracked. "You don't understand what this has done to us." "Oh, I do," I replied. "It showed you the same mirror I've been staring into for years." She hung up crying. An hour later, Michael called. No apology, no regret, just anger. "You humiliated us. You made the whole world think we're monsters." "I didn't make the world think that. You did. I just stopped hiding it." He cursed under his breath. "I hope you're happy." For the first time in years, I smiled honestly. "I am, Michael. For the first time, I really am." The town split in two. Some people called me cruel, a manipulative old woman testing her children. Others called me brilliant, a symbol of self-respect and justice. Strangers sent letters, hundreds of them. One said, "You're my hero. I wish my mom had done the same." Another read, "You taught me it's okay to walk away from ungrateful family." But the one that stayed with me came from a woman in Texas. "Dear Ellen, I cried watching your story. I spent my whole life giving to children who only took. You reminded me it's not selfish to want peace." That letter made me cry too. Not out of guilt, but of recognition. So many of us, silent givers, finally seeing ourselves in each other's pain. Through it all, Liam never changed. He came over one afternoon, wearing his usual hoodie and shy smile. "Grandma, the kids at school won't stop talking about you. They think you're awesome."
awesome? I laughed. That's not a word people usually use for me. He shrugged. Well, they should. You stood up for yourself. His innocence warmed something in me that had long gone cold. Liam, I said, money changes people. Promise me it won't change you. He looked me dead in the eye. It won't. You know why? Why, sweetheart? Because I saw what it did to them. 2 weeks later, I got an invitation from Ashley. A dinner. Just family, she had written. Let's talk. I almost didn't go. But something inside me, maybe hope, maybe closure, said I should. When I arrived, Ashley's home looked picture perfect. Spotless floors, golden lighting, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mom, she said softly, thank you for coming. Michael was there too, quieter than usual. We ate in silence for a while before Ashley finally spoke. I don't know how to fix this, she said, her voice trembling. I just know I want to. I looked at her, really looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes, the nervous tapping of her fingers. For the first time, she didn't look arrogant. She looked lost. Fixing starts with admitting what's broken, not what's inconvenient. Michael exhaled. We were wrong. Okay? We were wrong. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Ashley wiped her eyes. I thought you didn't need me anymore. I never stopped needing my children. I just stopped needing their cruelty. She nodded, silent tears running down her cheeks. I didn't forgive them that night. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a slow sunrise. But I saw something new in them. Shame. Real, heavy shame. And that meant maybe, someday, there could be healing. As I left, Ashley hugged me. Not the quick, polite kind, a real one. Mom, she whispered, thank you for giving me another chance. I didn't answer. I just squeezed her hand. People think revenge is about payback, about seeing the other person suffer. But real revenge is living in peace while they drown in the weight of their own conscience. I didn't destroy Ashley and Michael. I simply revealed them to themselves, to the world, and to their own hearts. Now, every time they see me, they'll remember the day truth walked into their lives wearing my smile. That's a kind of justice money can't buy. A month later, I made a decision that surprised even my lawyer. I started a foundation, the Quiet Hands Fund, to support struggling single parents and elderly caregivers. Every grant letter began the same way. You are not invisible. You matter. I didn't need all that money, but I needed to make meaning out of what had happened. The world already had enough takers. I wanted to be a giver again, but this time with boundaries. One evening, as the sun sank low, I sat on the porch swing with Liam. He looked at the sky and asked, Grandma, are you happy now? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm not sure happiness is the word, I said, but I'm free. He smiled. That's even better. A week later, a journalist asked if I'd do one final interview. He wanted to know if I considered what I did revenge or justice. I smiled into the camera and said, maybe both, maybe neither. Sometimes it's just about reminding the world that kindness shouldn't be taken for weakness. The clip went viral. Millions watched. But the people I wanted to reach, Ashley and Michael, they didn't need to. The silence between us said everything. Months passed, the headlines faded, but my story, our story, lingered in whispers, in dinner table debates, in quiet nods from strangers at the grocery store. Liam graduated high school that spring. When he walked across the stage, I cried like I hadn't in years. Not from sadness, but from pride. He waved at me, that same shy smile I loved so much. In that moment, I realized something simple and beautiful. You can lose almost everything and still win the one thing that matters: peace. That night, I wrote in my journal. I didn't set out to punish them. I set out to remind them. The people who take love for granted eventually learn what it feels like to lose it. Then I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and let the house fall silent again. For the first time in decades, silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned.
A year passed. Seasons turned, the leaves reddened, and the world slowly forgot about the story of the mother who tested her children with $300 million. But I didn't forget. Some memories cling like perfume, faint but permanent. Life had changed, yes, but the real transformation wasn't in my bank balance. It was in me. One autumn morning, I received a letter. Handwritten, shaky. The return address said, Ashley Bennett. I hesitated before opening it. Mom, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I wanted you to know. I've started therapy. Tom and I separated. I realized how much I became like him. I hated seeing myself through your eyes, but I needed to. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for forgiveness someday. Love, Ashley. Tears blurred the ink. Not because I forgave her yet, but because she finally saw herself clearly. That was all I ever wanted. A week later, Michael came by. No cameras, no lawyer, no folder, just him. He looked thinner, older. Life had humbled him. Mom, he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway, I came to return something. He handed me an old photograph. The three of us at the county fair, my arm around both kids, their faces smeared with cotton candy. He said, I kept this. Didn't think I deserved to. I smiled faintly. You always did. You just forgot why. He nodded, silent tears slipping down his cheek. He said, I'm sorry. And just like that, something inside me finally loosened. I said, come in. There's coffee. Sometimes forgiveness isn't spoken. It's poured. After they left, I sat with my lawyer reviewing the trust. He asked me, would you like to amend it, Mrs. Smith? Add your children back? I thought a long moment, then shook my head. No, I said quietly. The will stays as it is. But I'll help them in other ways, quietly, privately. They don't need to know it's from me. He smiled knowingly. You're still a mother. I said, always will be, even when they forget how to be children. The Quiet Hands Fund grew faster than I ever imagined. It started small, a few grants, a few families, but soon it became a national initiative helping caregivers, single mothers, and abandoned elders. People began writing to me not as a lottery winner, but as a listener. One woman wrote, your story gave me courage to leave my abusive son's house. I thought I had to stay because he was my mother. You showed me love can exist without obedience. Reading that, I realized my revenge had outgrown me. It had become something healing, for others, not just me. Months later, I was invited to receive an award for community service. It felt strange, me, standing under bright lights again. When they handed me the microphone, I didn't talk about money or charity. I talked about silence. I said, there are millions of people like me, mothers, fathers, grandparents, the ones who keep giving even when no one says thank you. Sometimes life doesn't reward kindness, so we learn to reward ourselves, with peace, with dignity, with the courage to walk away. The crowd went still. Then applause, long, loud, rising like a tide. I looked out and saw Liam in the front row, smiling, and next to him, to my quiet surprise, Ashley and Michael. No front row seats, no fanfare, just there, watching. And that was enough. That night, I hosted dinner at my home, the same table where everything once fell apart. Ashley brought a pie, Michael brought flowers, Liam brought laughter. We didn't talk about the past, we didn't need to. The silence between us was no longer heavy. It was healing. At one point, Liam leaned over and said, "Grandma, do you ever think about the ticket?" I smiled softly. "Sometimes. What would you do differently if you could go back?" I thought for a long time, then said, "Nothing." Because if I hadn't tested them, I'd never have known who they really were, or who I really am. Ashley reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly, and covered mine. She whispered, "Thank you." This time, I didn't pull away. Years later, when the reporters had moved on and the headlines faded, people still whispered about the woman with the secret lottery. They told the story like a modern fairy tale, about a mother's heartbreak, a family's fall, and the quiet revenge that changed everything. But what they didn't see was the truth behind the myth. It was never about the money. It was about respect, about love that refuses to be taken for granted. And maybe, just maybe, it was about teaching my children one final lesson, that kindness isn't weakness. It's power. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I sat on my porch swing with Liam, now taller, older, ready for college. He turned to me and said, "Grandma, I think your story should be a movie." I laughed softly. "Oh, it already is. We're living it." He grinned. "Then it needs an ending." I looked out at the sunset, gold melting into crimson, and said, "Here's your ending, sweetheart. Forgive the ones who fail you, but never forget what they taught you." He smiled. "That's a good line." I said, "It's a true one. Now go make your own story." He nodded, and for the first time I felt the circle complete. From betrayal to truth, from silence to peace. My name is Ellen Smith. I once thought the worst pain in life was being betrayed by the ones you love, but the real pain is forgetting who you are while trying to please them. I stopped forgetting. I found myself again, not through wealth, but through truth. If you've ever been hurt, disrespected, or abandoned, remember this. You don't need to scream for revenge. Sometimes the quietest justice is simply living better than they expected. If you felt this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Red Silk Revenge, where every story reminds us that karma never misses. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if life handed you $300 million? Until next time, stay strong, and remember, the sweetest revenge is peace.